Jack Callahan came to with dirt in his mouth and the copper taste of blood on his tongue. His body screamed in protest as he rolled onto his back, staring up at an alien sky. Violet streaks over a bloated sun, its heat oppressive against his skin. He was in a jungle, but not one he recognized. The trees were twisted, their bark glossy black, and their canopies knotted with bioluminescent vines. A damp fungal stench filled the air. Somewhere in the distance something howled, a deep guttural sound that sent a shiver down his spine. Jack pushed himself up, muscles aching. His last memory was of his SEAL unit storming an enemy outpost back on Earth. Then an explosion, white-hot pain, and now this. He wasn't wearing his combat gear, only a torn undershirt and cargo pants. No weapons, no communications. A rustle. Jack dropped to a knee, scanning the foliage. Years of combat instincts sharpened his senses. He wasn't alone. A blur of movement. Then the unmistakable snap of a rifle charging. Jack dove just as the shot cracked past his head, sizzling against a tree trunk. He hit the ground, rolling behind a thick root, as more shots tore through the air. Hunting tactics. A slow encirclement. Jack didn't wait. He tore a jagged rock from the dirt, hurling it into the underbrush. The brief distraction gave him enough time to sprint toward the nearest cover, an outcropping of slick, black stone. He pressed himself against it, heart hammering. From this vantage he caught his first glimpse of his pursuers. They were tall, armored figures, moving with the precision of trained killers. Their reptilian faces were partially concealed behind visors, but Jack could see slitted pupils, scanning for movement. They carried sleek plasma rifles, their barrels glowing faintly in the dim jungle light. One of them, larger than the others, spoke in a guttural language. The others spread out, a coordinated flank. Jack exhaled slowly. He'd been in worse spots. He spotted a shard of broken metal nearby, possibly wreckage from an old battle. When one of the hunters passed, he launched himself forward, swinging the jagged edge up in a vicious arc. The alien let out a strangled grunt as the metal sliced deep into its neck. Jack grabbed the plasma rifle before the body hit the ground. Now he was armed. He pivoted, squeezing the trigger. A bolt of energy tore into another hunter's chest, sending it sprawling. The remaining two hesitated, just enough time for Jack to dart deeper into the jungle. Jack moved for hours, keeping low, conserving energy. He needed answers, and more importantly, he needed allies. He found them in a clearing, a makeshift camp built from scavenged parts. A small group of humans huddled around a dying fire, their faces hollow with exhaustion. A woman with close-cropped blonde hair and sharp, intelligent eyes spotted him first. She stood, hand drifting toward a stolen alien sidearm. "You don't look like one of them," she said warily. "That's because I'm not," Jack replied, scanning the group. "SEAL Team 6, Callahan. Who's in charge?" The woman exchanged glances with a bespectacled man adjusting a cobbled-together radio. Finally, she stepped forward. "Captain Nadia Voss," she said. "Former fighter pilot. I lead this mess." Jack took in the others. Dr. Elias Park, the man with the radio, gaunt but sharp-eyed, with the restless energy of someone used to solving impossible problems. Marisol Rizzuto, a wiry young woman with a mischievous grin, fingers constantly tapping against a stolen datapad. Dante Cade lounging against a crate, a scar running across his chin. Something about him screamed, "Wild card." "Where the hell are we?" Jack asked. Voss sighed. "A Scaleth hunting world, Dominion territory. They abduct humans, soldiers, pilots, scientists, anyone they find useful, and throw them into their blood trials." Jack had heard of the Scaleth before, one of the countless warlike empires preying on weaker species across the galaxy. Humanity, as far as he knew, hadn't yet entered their radar. Until now. "And let me guess," Jack said. "No one ever makes it out alive?" "Not without a fight," Voss admitted. Jack nodded, jaw tightening. "Then let's give them one." Voss led Jack into a concealed cave where they had stashed stolen weapons and scraps of alien tech. "The trials have rules," Elias explained. "Scaleth warriors hunt us, but we're expected to die honorably, not fight back. If we do, they send in more. They enjoy making it a challenge." Jack smirked. "They like a challenge? Then let's give them something they've never seen before." Rizzo grinned. "I like this guy." The plan came together fast. They would disrupt the trials by taking out the Scaleth Command Center, a heavily guarded outpost controlling communications and transport. If they could cripple it, they'd have a shot at stealing a ship and getting off-world. They spent the night preparing. Jack helped train the civilians in ambush tactics. Voss mapped out attack routes. Elias modified captured weapons for better efficiency. Rizzo hacked into Scaleth systems, feeding them false reports. Dante, of course, found a way to smuggle in explosives. "Old habits," he said with a shrug. By dawn, they were ready. Jack looked around at his new team, scarred, desperate, but determined. This wasn't just about escaping anymore. This was about proving that humanity wasn't prey. They moved before the sun fully rose. Jack led the way, plasma rifle slung across his back. They approached the Scaleth outpost under the cover of thick vegetation. Guards patrolled in pairs, unaware of the coming storm. Rizzo whispered into the comms. "Jamming their signals now." Voss gave the signal. Jack struck first, dropping a guard with a silent shot. Voss took the second. The team rushed in, seizing control of the outer perimeter. Alarms blared, but by the time reinforcements arrived, explosives were already set. "Time to go!" Dante yelled, grinning as he hit the detonator. The Scaleth outpost erupted in fire and shrapnel. As they ran toward the nearest captured transport, Jack felt something he hadn't in a long time. This wasn't just survival, this was payback, and it was only the beginning. The Scaleth outpost was a smoking ruin in the jungle, but Jack and his team had no time to admire their handiwork. They pushed forward, sprinting toward the captured transport ship, an angular Scaleth gunship, its dark alloy hull reflecting the burning embers behind them. The stolen access codes Rizzo had cracked worked, and the ramp hissed open. Jack took the pilot's seat while Voss slid into the co-pilot's chair, her fingers already working over the unfamiliar controls. "Think you can fly this thing?" Jack asked. Voss snorted. "If it's got thrusters, I can fly it." Jack didn't argue. The ship roared to life, engines whining as they lifted off. A second later, red warning lights flooded the cockpit. Guys?" Rizzo called from the control panel. "We've got incoming." Jack's eyes flicked to the scanner. A Scaleth destroyer loomed above the jungle, its weapons locking onto them. "Shields up!" Voss barked. "Shields?" Elias said, panicked. "We barely know how to—" The destroyer opened fire. Jack yanked the controls as the gunship lurched violently, narrowly dodging the plasma barrage. The next shot clipped their wing, sending alarms screaming. "Not good! Not good!" Dante shouted from the back. "Hang on!" Voss growled. Her hands flew over the controls. The ship twisted into a nosedive toward the jungle. For a brief, terrifying moment, Jack thought she'd lost control. Then at the last second she pulled up, skimming the treetops. The Scaleth destroyer hesitated, unwilling to fire into dense jungle canopy. It was the opening they needed. Voss rocketed them toward the sky, punching through the planet's atmosphere at breakneck speed. The moment they hit open space, Rizzo whooped. "We're out!" Jack barely had time to exhale before another alert blared. "Scaleth fighters, inbound," Voss said grimly. Jack's jaw clenched. Time to see what this ship can do. They outran the Scaleth pursuers thanks to Rizzo hacking the ship's transponder, making them vanish from enemy sensors. Days later, the stolen gunship arrived at Nova Bastion, a hidden colony on the outskirts of known space. The moment they touched down, they were surrounded by armed humans, former prisoners, scavengers, and outlaws, all with one thing in common. They had escaped the Scaleth and survived. The colony was carved into the jagged cliffs of a dead planet, a mix of salvaged ships and makeshift structures. It wasn't much, but it was home to hundreds of humans who had refused to stay prey. A burly man with a cybernetic arm approached, flanked by guards. His face was scarred, his expression wary. "Didn't think I'd see you again, Voss," he said, arms crossed. Voss smirked. "Miss me, Commander Harlan?" Harlan, the de facto leader of Nova Bastion, grunted. "Depends. You bring trouble?" Jack stepped forward. "More than you can handle. But we also brought a plan." Harlan's eyes narrowed. "I'm listening." Jack told them everything. The blood trials, the hunt, the Scaleth's arrogance. He laid out a bold idea. Instead of hiding, Nova Bastion should strike first. Hit the Scaleth where they least expected it. "Stealing a ship was a message," Jack said. "Now let's make sure they hear it loud and clear." The room fell into tense silence as Jack and Voss detailed their plan. Elias pointed to a holographic map of the Scaleth Dominion. "We don't have the numbers for an all-out war, but we don't need one. We just need to disrupt their grip on power. Their entire empire thrives on dominance," Rizzo added. "If we show them humans aren't easy prey, they'll lose face. If they lose face, they lose control." Jack leaned in. "We take the fight to the heart of their blood trials. Destroy the hunting lodges, the arenas. Make sure they never hunt another human again." The room erupted into arguments. Some wanted to stay hidden. Others thought it was suicide. Harlan eyed Jack carefully. "You really think a bunch of escaped prisoners can take on an empire?" Jack met his gaze. "I know we can." After a long pause, Harlan cracked a grin. "Damn, I think I like you." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. Elias reverse-engineered captured Scaleth tech, modifying human weapons to pierce alien armor. Rizzo infiltrated Scaleth data networks, planting false reports and learning their patrol routes. Dante smuggled in stolen supplies, securing explosives and fuel. Voss trained pilots, turning ex-prisoners into a ragtag fleet. Jack worked with the ground troops, drilling them in hit-and-run tactics. They didn't have numbers, but they had creativity, and that was humanity's greatest weapon. The Scaleth fought with brute force and predictable patterns. Humans, they adapted, they improvised, and when backed into a corner, they hit back twice as hard. By the time they were ready, Nova Bastion was no longer just a colony. It was an army. Their first target was Karak Station, a major Scaleth hunting lodge orbiting a barren moon. It housed warriors, trophy vaults, and most importantly, slave transport logs. If they hit Karak, they wouldn't just deal a blow to the blood trials. They'd expose where the Scaleth were keeping human captives across the sector. The night before the assault, Jack stood on the cliffside overlooking Nova Bastion. Voss walked up beside him. "You ready for this?" Jack nodded. "I've been ready since the moment they tried to make me their prey." Voss smirked. "Good. Because after tomorrow, the whole galaxy is going to know one thing." Jack raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" Voss's grin was wolfish. "Humans don't run. We hunt." The Karak Station loomed ahead, a massive armored hunting lodge suspended in orbit over a barren moon. From a distance, it resembled a great beast, spiked fortifications, docking arms reaching like claws into the void. It was where the Scaleth Dominion's elite warriors gathered to celebrate their kills, store their trophies, and plan new blood trials. Tonight, it would burn. Jack Callahan crouched inside the stolen Scaleth transport, staring at the approaching station through the viewport. Around him, the strike team sat in tense silence. Voss adjusted the fit of her stolen Scaleth battle armor. Elias checked the explosives, his fingers steady despite the weight of what they were about to do. Rizzo hummed softly, her datapad glowing as she worked her final system overrides. Dante, ever the wild card, leaned back with a lazy grin, flipping a stolen plasma knife between his fingers. Jack exhaled. No turning back now. He keyed his comm. "All teams, check in." A chorus of voices answered. The fleet was in position. The trap was set. Nova Bastion's ragtag forces had gathered whatever ships they could. Modified freighters, salvaged fighters, even a few repurposed Scaleth vessels. They weren't an armada, But they didn't need to be. This wasn't a war, it was a message. "Rizzo?" Jack asked. "Give me 30 more seconds," she muttered. "Almost got their security feeds looped. If we time this right, we'll be ghosts on their sensors." Jack's grip tightened on his rifle. 30 seconds could be the difference between victory and disaster. Voss glanced at him. "You ever get tired of doing the impossible?" Jack smirked. "You ever stop asking stupid questions?" Before she could respond, Rizzo let out a triumphant chuckle. "Got it. We're in." Jack pressed his comm. "All units, go." The transport glided into Carrick's docking bay without issue. Disguised as Scaleth hunters returning from a mission, Jack and his team stepped onto the station's gleaming floors. Inside, the lodge was a monument to Scaleth brutality. The walls were adorned with grotesque trophies, mounted skulls, preserved hides of countless species. In the center of the hall, warriors feasted, their guttural laughter echoing through the chamber. Jack's stomach twisted. They think they're untouchable. Let's prove them wrong. They split up. Elias and Dante headed for the power generators, explosives hidden beneath their stolen armor. Rizzo slipped into the shadows, making her way to the security hub. Jack and Voss remained in the main hall, moving toward the restricted archives. Their goal: steal the captive transport logs and destroy the station. A Scaleth warrior blocked their path, scanning them with slit-pupiled eyes. Elias and Dante detonated the first set of charges, plunging the station into darkness. Emergency lights flickered on, casting eerie red shadows as the Scaleth scrambled in confusion. Jack and Voss sprinted toward the archives, blasting through guards. Rizzo's voice came over the comms. "I'm in their systems, sending you the prisoner logs now." A hollow screen flashed to life in front of them. Rows of data scrolled past, locations of captured humans, transport schedules, the names of those already sent to their deaths. Jack's fists clenched. So many lives lost, but not anymore. He copied the data, then armed the final set of explosives. "Voss, time to go." The Scaleth were regrouping now, storming through the halls with heavy boots and snarling war cries. Jack and Voss fought their way back to the hangar, where the others were waiting. Dante, covered in soot, grinned. "Good news. We found an escape ship. Bad news. It's still attached to the station." Jack didn't slow. "Then let's fix that problem." Jack barely had time to react before the alien grabbed his arm. "You! What tribe do you hail from?" For a moment, silence stretched between them. Jack could feel Voss tensing beside him, ready to strike. Then Dante's voice crackled over the comms. "Sorry to interrupt, but we've got a problem." Jack didn't hesitate. He drove his plasma knife into the warrior's throat. The Scaleth gurgled, eyes wide before collapsing. Voss exhaled. "Well, so much for subtle." Alarms blared. Time to move. Elias and Dante detonated the first set of charges, plunging the station into darkness. Emergency lights flickered on, casting eerie red shadows as the Scaleth scrambled in confusion. Jack and Voss sprinted toward the archives, blasting through guards. Rizzo's voice came over the comms. "I'm in their systems, sending you the prisoner logs now." A holoscreen flashed to life in front of them. Rows of data scrolled past, locations of captured humans, transport schedules, the names of those already sent to their deaths. Jack's fists clenched. So many lives lost, but not anymore. He copied the data, then armed the final set of explosives. "Voss, time to go!" The Scaleth were regrouping now, storming through the halls with heavy boots and snarling war cries. Jack and Voss fought their way back to the hangar, where the others were waiting. Dante, covered in soot, grinned. "Good news. We found an escape ship. Bad news. It's still attached to the station." Jack didn't slow. "Then let's fix that problem." The Scaleth war chief, High Hunter Varek, emerged from the chaos, towering clad in obsidian armor and wielding a massive blade crackling with energy, his golden eyes locked onto Jack. "You defile our sacred grounds," Varek snarled. "You think yourself worthy to challenge us?" Jack raised his rifle. "I don't think, buddy. I know. Varek lunged. Jack dodged, rolling aside as the blade crashed into the floor, sending sparks flying. He fired a shot, but Varek deflected it with inhuman speed. The alien was strong, fast, trained for the hunt, but Jack had something better. He improvised. As Varek swung again, Jack threw his plasma knife, not at the war chief, but at the ceiling vent above him. A burst of coolant erupted, showering the alien in freezing mist. Varek roared in pain. Jack didn't give him time to recover. He grabbed a fallen plasma grenade, activated it, and slammed it into Varek's chest. Catch! He dove back as the explosion sent the war chief flying. The ship's engines roared behind them. Voss was already in the cockpit, the others scrambling aboard. Jack ran for the ramp as the station trembled beneath them. Scaleth warriors fired wildly, but he didn't stop. Not this close. He leaped. Voss yanked him into the ship just as the hangar exploded behind them. The stolen vessel shot into space, leaving Carrick Station behind. Jack watched from the viewport as the station detonated in a chain reaction, a fireball blooming against the void, a fitting end to a hunting lodge built on suffering. As the adrenaline faded, Rizzo let out a breathless laugh. "Well, that was fun," Jack smirked. "You call that fun, Rizzo?" She grinned. "Oh, absolutely. Let's do it again." Jack glanced at the stolen data on his wrist display. The Scaleth weren't finished. Not yet. But neither was he. The real war had just begun. The Scaleth Dominion was in chaos. Carrick Station's destruction sent shockwaves through their empire. Word spread fast. Humans hadn't just escaped. They had fought back, hard. In Scaleth culture, dominance was everything, and losing to prey was unthinkable. Now the hunters were scrambling. The blood trials had been shattered. The remaining hunting lodges were on high alert, and the Dominion's high command wanted revenge. Jack Callahan was counting on it. Inside the war room of Nova Bastion, Jack stood with his team, analyzing the Scaleth's next move. The stolen data had revealed something critical. The Scaleth were deploying their elite forces to hunt down the rebels. Their leader? Overlord Skarn, the mastermind behind the blood trials. Jack tapped the holomap. Skarn's fleet is rallying at Torvash Prime, one of their military outposts. "They think we're running," Voss smirked. "They're about to be very disappointed." Elias folded his arms. "So we hit them first?" Jack nodded. "We don't just hit them. We make sure they never recover." The plan was risky, but it was their best shot. While the Scaleth were still disorganized, they would launch a surprise strike on Torvash. If they could eliminate Skarn and destroy the Dominion's command structure, the Empire would fracture. Humanity wouldn't just survive, it would win. The stolen Scaleth dreadnought, Voidfang, dropped out of warp near Torvash Prime, its hull painted in the blood-red insignia of the Dominion. Inside, Jack and his strike team hid in the shadows of the cargo bay, waiting. Dante adjusted his stolen armor. "Remind me, what's the plan if this goes horribly wrong?" Jack smirked. "Don't let it?" Dante grinned. "Great plan. Love it." Rizzo's voice crackled over the comms. "I've got control of their security grid. You've got 6 minutes before they realize something's off." That was all they needed. Jack led the charge, slipping through the corridors of Torvash. The halls were crawling with Scaleth warriors, but Rizzo's system override kept the alarms silent. They moved like ghosts. At the heart of the fortress, Overlord Skarn waited. The war room was massive, its walls lined with holograms of Scaleth conquests. Skarn stood at the center, a towering figure clad in black warplate, his eyes glowing with fury. Jack stepped forward, rifle raised. Nice place. Shame if something happened to it. Skarn's mouth curled into a snarl. "You dare enter my domain, human?" Jack shrugged. "You dared to hunt us first." The Overlord's guards moved, but Voss and Dante were faster. Blasters roared, and 2 Scaleth fell before they could react. The room erupted into chaos. Skarn lunged at Jack, his warblade a blur. Jack barely dodged in time. the weapon slicing through the air where his head had been. The Overlord was faster than Varek, stronger, but not smarter. Jack wasn't fighting to prove dominance. He was fighting to win. He threw a flash charge, blinding Skarn for a crucial second. Voss took the shot, a plasma round slamming into the Overlord's side. Skarn roared but didn't fall. Jack rushed in, knife drawn. "This is for every human you hunted." The blade sank deep. Skarn shuddered. His golden eyes dimmed, and then he fell. Jack stepped back, chest heaving. It was over. With Skarn dead, the Dominion's chain of command shattered. Rizzo's virus spread through the Skylith fleet, shutting down ships and sending out false distress signals. Outside, the Nova Bastion fleet struck, crippling Torvash Prime. The Empire's hunters, once feared across the galaxy, were now leaderless and scattered. Voss slumped against a console. "Tell me we're done," Jack exhaled. "We're done." Dante grinned. "So, what now?" Jack glanced at the stars beyond. "Now, we rebuild." Humanity had been prey, but not anymore. Now they were the hunters.